fighting anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe has voted English-only sign 40,000 tons of armed with PCBs blew up the ozone layer today.
Standing by for solid rocket booster separation.
Greetings, prisoners of gravity. This is Commander Rick, Pirate VJ, and Man About Earth interrupting this channel. If I can get just one of you to read science fiction or pick up one of the new comics around today, I'll be a happy man. Or relatively happy, considering I'm stuck up here. Okay, I'll be happier. Now, I know what you're thinking. Comics are for kids. Today, most comic buyers are over 18. You didn't know that, did you? There's still superhero comics for kids. Well, for boys, mostly. This issue of Spider-Man sold almost 3 million copies at over $2 a pop. Written and drawn by Todd McFarlane. Todd, it's Commander Rick. Everyone's talking about how you changed the look of Spider-Man.
Some of the looks that I put on Spider-Man weren't really there because I thought Spider-Man was done wrongly or that I could do a better job. But at that point in my career, and still today, I go in with the attitude that I have to do something different with everything to get some kind of recognition. Even if it's bad recognition, it's better than no recognition, which is a kiss of death for an artist.
Why did you change Spider-Man's costume? Well, I mean, you didn't change his costume. I mean, you didn't help him get dressed. I mean, why did you redesign his costume?
My attitude was, why do what's been done for the last 20 years on that character when there's plenty of guys willing to do it that way that could do it better than I could that way. And I needed to do something, if I'm going to do Spider-Man, that makes it a Todd McFarlane Spider-Man, for better or for worse. And so I just made a few cosmetic changes. It wasn't that big of a deal. It's just that nobody had done anything with him for 20 years, so it seemed like a big deal at the time. So.
You're an artist, but now you're also doing the writing. Do you start with a visual idea, a Spider-Man dangling from the Statue of Liberty in his nose hair, or do you start with a story idea, Spider-Man saves the world? I'm
an artist first and a writer second, which if you look at the credits closely, you'll see that that's how it's labeled. Artist-writer, not writer-artist. Yeah, I look at the visual. First off, I go, who do the kids want to see? I pick a cool visual guy. Okay. Ghost Rider. Okay, we'll put Ghost Rider. He's kind of neat to look at. And who's going to be the bad guy? Hobgoblin. He's got kind of fangs and whatever. And I work from that. I'm concerned about doing a beginning, middle, end story. That's it. Doing it my way. Having the freedom, not having to fight the company for it. And as long as it sells, then everything would be cool.
Well, stay cool, Todd. As well as the regular Amazing Spider-Man comic and Todd's Spider-Man series, there are other special Spider-Man comics. Charles Vess wrote a Spider-Man story set in Scotland. He based the villains on a real 17th century group of rowdies known as the Hellfire Club. Ah, laddie, let's get down. Charles, it's Commander Rick. I heard your Spider-Man story's out, and you've illustrated a story for the Sandman comic, a new take on A Midsummer's Night's Dream. What's that project about?
William Shakespeare, at a very early age, this is before he was just trying to be able to write, and he was writing bad plays. And he makes some sort of deal that you don't know what it is with the Sandman, who's the master of dreams. And the Sandman tells him a story, and he writes it into play form. And he and his group, that eventually become the Globe Theatre group, are traveling in the South Sussex Downs of England, and they're to perform his first major play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, but they don't know who it's for. Then the Sandman opens the portals between our world and the worlds of Fairy, and the real Oberon, Titania, Puck, and the hosts of Fairy come, and they sit in this dell and they watch the play that is written about them. And it's a very interesting interaction between the humans and the fairy.
Great, thanks, Charles. The man who created the Sandman is British writer Neil Gaiman. I talked to Neil a while ago. He told me about some of his plans for Sandman.
The next storyline, Season of Mists, is very, very strange. It has a heavy third-person narrator. It has very long, complex... Instead of having these sort of nifty little chapter titles, you know, the sound of her wings or whatever, moving in, you know, these kind of things that you can get to relate in 4 or 5 different ways. This has sort of an episode, the first episode of Sandman, for example, is actually called In Which a Family Reunion Occasions Certain Personal Recriminations and an Event Long Done With Proves to Have Much Relevance Today. I think there may even be another clause on that. But it's a very literary style, it's a distancing style. And as opposed to the sort of sucking you in effect that you can do with just panels and dialogue, we're actually putting in a third-person narrator to give you information you couldn't otherwise get, but also hold you at arm's length. And there's a level on which it has an almost 19th century feel to it.
19th century novels, 17th century Hellfire Club, 15th century Shakespeare. Just don't tell people it's good for them. Comics are evolving, attracting an older audience. Take Enemy Ace. It was always different from the dozens of other war comics because it was about a World War I German pilot, an enemy ace. The sky is friend to no man, friend or foe alike. Tomorrow I will give it another chance to kill me. Shazam, Sergeant. The enemy feels fear just like us. It was controversial because when it came out, America was sinking into Vietnam. Enemy Ace was shot down in 1976. Switched to 1990, George Pratt persuades DC Comics to let him resurrect Baron von Hammer. George wants to make a stronger statement about war and Vietnam.
I mean, I remember seeing the body counts on TV and Walter Cronkite and a whole bit, and then the news footage, and also the ads that they had were really creepy and stuff. And it used to scare me. I thought I was going to have to go, and I would have nightmares of getting killed over in Vietnam and stuff like that. And Enemy Ace seemed to be the perfect way to get that out, is to compare these, compare and contrast these 2 different wars. And what's amazing is how similar they really were, especially from the soldier's viewpoint.
Now, Vietnam and World War I were 50 years and half a world apart, but George found a way to tie them together.
It's a young reporter, a Vietnam vet, who was a tunnel rat in Vietnam, is troubled by the things that he saw in Vietnam and the things he had to do, and doesn't know how to deal with them emotionally, mentally, and everything. So he finds out that Von Hammer is living somewhere, and he approaches Von Hammer in this nursing home, and basically is looking for answers on how to cope with the things he saw. Von Hammer is the killing machine, the angel of death, and all this stuff, and he wonders how a man who has this reputation of being this really great killing machine can actually come out seemingly unscathed out of all these different wars, and thinks there must be a secret to it, and how can he get the answers to deal with his own problems. And so it's basically they sit and go over their own stories and compare notes, and basically find that they're not all that different, and that there is no answer to that.